dance conversations that have happened there. So again, it's like I don't think we can rein it in where the good conversations are going to happen, but I look for that combination of a wider access, a freer flow of information with a quality of debate. And then how do you, and I'm looking at that from a meta level in terms of like, what do I want to do as a teacher, writer? And I didn't say that, but I consider my writing, I mean, there's a pretty strong pedagogical point or agenda to my writing and to any engagement I have, like my performing, being here. So in terms of what is there to teach, I think there's a lot of things to teach about having more people respond to or develop a language of the body and what that is, so that we can actually have something to talk about. And the other is that we need to continually teach people to critically relate to language and to information, so that the possibility of debate can even exist.
I guess what I'm thinking of is all the things that you're proposing. This is why we need so many different kinds of writers. Those are presuming people who are already on that level of discourse. And I guess I'm remembering for myself being a little girl growing up in Fresno, liking dance, where I did not have a culturally educated family, did not have a lot of access to go see those kinds of performances. And you know, when I was growing up and wanting to learn about dance, I needed those writers who were my entryway to that discussion. And I still think that we need to develop also those kinds of writers who are the doorway into that level of discussion. And that's more what I'm personally interested in doing.
But is it that you need the writers, or that you need that you needed to see the dance? I mean, it seems to me, I mean, I'm not very pessimistic, but I think if critics and reviewers would disappear, dance would still exist. Because dance is a very, very old form, and criticism, as we know it, it's a relatively new invention. It has been around for maybe, 60 years. I mean, if we read what critics wrote in the 19th century, I mean, we know what they liked and what they didn't like, but you had a very, very little sense of what the actual dance was, what was about, what it looked like. So, I think criticism and reviewing is incredibly important as part of the public discourse in a civilized society. It's an acknowledgement of what dance is. But I think if we critics were not around, I think dancers would still have performances, they would still get audiences. I mean, just think what has happened, because space has shrunk in so many papers, but there is all this cheap printing. I mean, we get flooded with those postcards. Every company can do that, and the email, the word does get out. It's dancers who have taken, the initiative. I don't think dance audiences have shrunk because there is less coverage than we're giving it. But I still think it's important, not so much for the dancers, but for the society as at large, because it has to be part of the public discourse.
I think most dancers are making work outside of any relationship to criticism, especially in this town. If you're starting off here, I mean, there are many dancers who have been making work here for decades who are still waiting for their first review. And some of them are still sending press releases. They have a bad attitude about it, but they're doing it. So that's one piece. I had one other that was related. I'll pass and see what you're going to.
Well, I think that brings us to my next question, which is just about how you as writers see your relationship to dancers. And I know you've expressed some thoughts. Rachel talked about how, and both of you, Rachel and Rita talked about not writing for dancers, that the critic's job is really not about giving feedback to artists, but about, connecting with audiences. I'm wondering what you see as your relationship with choreographers and dance practitioners, and how you see that changing, if at all.
I think I see myself very much as an outsider. I don't consider myself part of the dance community. I'm an outsider, and I'm looking in. It's sort of like a peeping Tom, looking through the lit windows and see what's going on.
regardless of what she says, I think Rita's in my dance community. Just remembered the other thing I was going to say, which is that I think that the audience for dance writing is not a clear overlap with the audience, especially when we talk about commercial press, and even once you go online. I don't think it's the same audience as the audience for dance for our shows. And I think that there's some overlap, but actually in a large part they're not the same. There are people who like to read the Chronicle. And so sometimes they read the dance, and sometimes you actually, and I think you're right, especially if someone can write with longevity for the same paper, they'll be more drawn to go, wait, who's Rachel Howard? Or, oh wait, didn't I read her last year? And then the next year they read you 3 times, and then, you know what I mean? And they might go to something. So I think that does happen. But I think that there are many people who read about who don't ever go see live. And there are, for sure, many people in, you know, I look at, see different artists out here, many people who are in our audiences who do not read the reviews. And they don't even read the reviews. Like most of my audience does not read the Chronicle. So even when I'm reviewed in the Chronicle, no one saw it. Or not no one. There's this overlap, but it's actually, there's these huge pools of people. So I think there's actually a big space in there. And I think it's all interesting and relevant, but I mean, it would be a mistake to think that when we talk about the audience or something, that there's somehow the same people, that the people interested in seeing a performance. And just to say, I think we have a hard enough time even getting an overlap from one show to the other. Like, when I look out and see my fellow choreographers, it's like, it's almost like every one of us has had to build the audience. Like, we had to build our own house, and then we had to build the chairs, and then people came in and sat in them, and now we have this family. And it's like, there's a tiny number of people who go to everyone's shows. But other than that, it's like, it's all different people who go out twice a year to dance. And otherwise, they're seeing something else, you know.
I think now would be a great time to open it up. We have dancers in the audience. We have other illustrious dance writers in the audience. Many of the audience members are dance writers themselves. We also have students who are dance writers in the audience. And so I am interested in your questions and opinions. And we have someone in the way back. So Maureen, if you can run with that microphone.
Thanks. Okay, I just want to open it up to some other dance writing genres, maybe. And I'm picking up on your point, Keith, about the friction between words and dance. And I want to ask about places where the disobedience between dance and writing can happen in criticism. And whether any of you have any even nebulous sense of what might be involved in disobedient dance criticism, in a dance criticism that becomes a conversation, that maybe doesn't conceive itself as a bridge or as an educative tool, as important as those are, but more as a place where the other concerns that drive many of us as dancers and as critics can come to the fore, can begin a conversation. So I'm just wondering what you guys are reading that might do that.
Can I ask you to just elaborate a little bit on why you chose the word disobedient? Because that's so provocative that I'm really curious, and it might be helpful.
I'm just always interested in how we all conceive of the relations between writing and dancing. And I've been writing down some of the things that you all mention, and I have the bridge and the doorway. I have that dance is not inscrutable. You know, these distinctions between dancing and writing. And I think dance criticism can become very generative when it takes itself serious as an art form in dialogue with dance as an art form, which is slightly different from a description of dance, slightly different from an educative perspective. It's one that where different kind of art practices get in contact with one another. And disobedience can also mean play.
I would take issue with the word disobedience just because it assumes that the authority comes from one place and not another, and you're defying that authority. I have played a little bit with what I would say is an exchange or a dialogue with the dance, and the